Hello, today I have a message called Allow a Constricting Band to be Snipped. Beginning with, to want to see nothing but innocence in your divine siblings is the greatest freedom. So today, anywhere I run into a hiccup and I check in with myself, what do I want? Do I want to see nothing but innocence in this one who has come to mind? Or in this one who seems to be in my physical presence? Am I wanting anything else? Anything other than wanting to see their full, pure, beautiful, connected innocence right now? This is the key to my freedom. It's what I want out of you. I don't want anything out of you, although in this story I may still ask you for things. But I don't need anything out of you. We're joined. We're one. We're joined in innocence. And do I want to see that in you? Or am I putting another want in front of that? And it's interesting, as we act out the story, it does seem we have these wants. But I do like to take that moment where I can, where I get the reminder, to sink into that. I want nothing but to see your innocence and to see how beautiful that feels, to enjoy the resting place of that. And also, if it doesn't feel like a beautiful resting place when you say, and you're thinking of someone, you say, I want nothing but to see your innocence, that's also good. If I detect a disturbance, because there's exactly what I'm using to block the beautiful resting place that belongs to me and everyone. And in my insanity, sometimes I block access to it. So that's good too. So if I suggest to myself, I want nothing but to see your innocence, and there's like a hiccup or a block or an intensity, then I get to go investigate. So either way, I'm good. What is that one specific thought that comes to mind? And it could be 100 thoughts, but just pick one, because one is the same as all of the ego thoughts. What is that one specific thought that comes to mind when I suggest to myself, I want nothing but to see your innocence, and a little hiccup comes in? What is that hiccup saying? It could be a big hiccup too. It could be a tsunami comes in. But we just pluck one thought out of the tsunami, because it doesn't matter. One thought is all of the thoughts. And you can do it with just one. What is that very specific thought? And my metaphor lately has been the sidewalk. I just take the thought. I recognize I'm holding something not useful to me or anybody. I put it on the sidewalk and I stand back up. I've had that metaphor for a long time. And I see, if I really need that thought, I can just pick it right back up again. But in this moment, what can I focus toward? I'm trying to remember what my focus for today was. Let not my world obscure the sight of Christ. The Christ is the pure oneness. That's the truth about all of us, the peace, the joy, the being. And my world is what I made with fearful thought. It transitions into a world Spirit makes through me and everyone with peaceful, loving, joyful thought. It's not a struggle against an opposite, though. It just begins to flow through as we pull out these blocks. This loving thought, our real thoughts, it begins to flow through as we remove the blocks. So we're not struggling against an opposite, because there is no opposite. That which would appear to oppose love isn't real and isn't here, although it seems to be. That's what a hallucination is. So whatever my thought was, I found, and I set it down, then I turned toward, let not my world obscure the sight of Christ, or the sight of our oneness, or the sight of what is real. I still remember being in that religious language allergy phase, and my reaction against the very words was a problem for me. It's not anymore, but I still kind of have this little ping to provide some substitutes, because I remember what that was like. And I really needed some non-religious language. And of course, you may not need the language at all. But I'm still using words. I like them. But obviously recognizing I'm describing a practice, but your practice that lights up for you is the practice that lights up for you. And so to keep recognizing you're just guided, you're led, and you don't have to contort yourself into a shape that is not natural and obvious for you. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah. Generate, generate, generate. Melt, melt, melt. Happy sights and sounds greet you as the mirage of strife is allowed to melt away. So generate came first. It's like almost the wave or the pulse of the world our Christ sight shows us. And the doubt comes in, the doubt that transformation can occur, but transformation is meant to occur. We just stop standing in the way. And it's not transformation in alignment with the ego says it wants this, the ego says it wants that. It's transformation that we allow to reflect our true and shared self back to us very simply. So generate, generate, generate. These loving thoughts are coming through, right? And they almost create a pressure. If you think of pressure in your life in a sort of positive way, using the language of duality, any pressure we feel, it could be, these loving thoughts that generate a world that reflects our true and shared innocent self back to us are waiting. I can feel them at my door. I sense their presence, right? And then melt, melt, melt. Well, let's say your door is made of ice. And so you recognize when you feel that pressure, that presence of loving thought that generates a world that reflects your true and shared self back to you very simply. It doesn't have to happen with strife. It happens as a reward for, yes, you've become willing to see what you are, and here's what you are. It's very, very simple. So let's say that door that's been in the way of these loving thoughts is ice. Melt, melt, melt. You feel the presence of the loving thoughts as pressure, and we tend to interpret pressure negatively. But if you interpret it like this, like there's a batch of loving thoughts awaiting me, and then the door I've been holding in place. Melt, melt, melt. There's no reason to keep that door in place. And then the thoughts flow into your experience. And then happy sights and sounds greet you and everyone. Because when we don't feel good, we're seeing a mirage. So we see the other end of that stick. When we feel a sense of pressure, when we don't feel good, we're looking at a mirage. But what melts away the mirage? allowing it to melt, allowing the loving thoughts through. The loving thoughts replace what you believed you were seeing before. Now the loving thoughts make an illusion. It's another mirage, right? and eventually all mirages go. You are not this mirage. You are not time and space. Eventually, time and space is finite. You're prior to and beyond time and space. But what happens to time and space before the whole mirage goes, leaving you as you truly are? It transforms. It reflects back the beauty and the innocence and the purity of the true self you share with everyone. So generate, 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 meaning these loving thoughts do generate an illusion, a replacement illusion. Melt, melt, melt. Here they are. We just let them through. And here they come. It's like you have rubber bands constricting an inflatable flotation device. There is still a little room to allow air to be pumped in, so you allow that. So think about you have, okay, let's say it's a life vest. It's a flotation device. But there are also rubber bands around it in, I don't know, let's say 8 or 9 places. And so they're going to constrict the airflow. You're not going to be able to inflate it fully with these rubber bands on. And there is a little room, though, for it to be inflated. And so the air goes in, and the air goes in, and there's nothing stopping it. And then, we feel the pressure of where this rubber band is. And the rubber band doesn't need to snap off and fly across the room in some drama, right? You don't need anything to be dramatic. You can just snip the band. You let it go. So you don't need an exploding band, right? You don't need pressure, 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 pressure. You can feel subtle pressure and realize, oh, this band is constricting the airflow. I'm just snipping it off. And then it's allowed to expand. And that's what we do when we find a thought that feels constricting like that. It's just a rubber band. We just snip it, and the air flows in, and the flotation device expands. That's all we're doing. It's no threat to what we truly are. What we truly are is stable and here forever, and nothing can touch or ding or damage it. And then that band is off, and the air flows in, but there are still other bands on your flotation device, and it fills up to the greatest extent it can. And then, you feel this pressure again. And it's just time to snip. And then, it expands. So as soon as you feel the pressure, you can snip, because you know how beautiful the expansion feels. And that's another way of looking at thought work, at recognizing and bringing thoughts to the light. A nightmare has to be brought up out of the depths and looked at for a moment before we release it, before the light shines it away. So don't be shy about looking at the very specific thoughts you're believing when you don't feel good, because that is the way out of that pressure. And when you set the rubber band down on the sidewalk, yes, you can take another rubber band and put it back on your flotation device, right? But if you've snipped that one and set it down, you can take the same thought and constrict your flotation device again if you want to. But usually you will not want to, because you'll see that thought was never safety. It doesn't serve you or anyone. You're still actively making a hallucination. Remember, hallucination's not real. Whether it's the hallucination I make with thoughts of fear, this world of limits and death, yay me, or whether it's the world spirit, which is what I truly am, makes through me, through this character, through everyone and everything I see in the world. That's a replacement illusion. They're both hallucinations. It's just we wise up and let in this sane, honest hallucination. Okay, so you're still actively making a hallucination. It's just now you allow spirit to do it. And these big, beautiful thoughts that are flowing in, if they are encountering ego thoughts in their way, they just wait. They wait. But you may sense it as an increase in pressure. And the key, at least as it's being presented to me right now, is to find just one thought associated with that pressure. Put it down on the sidewalk. Reorient. Let not my world, the world I built with thoughts of fear, obscure the sight of Christ. Obscure what I see when I allow the loving thoughts to flow in. And that becomes the replacement thought. So all our defenses, right, they do go. The ways we're defending our separate self, they go. And we feel the pressure first before we let go. But it's so safe to allow that replacement world to flow in. You don't need the defenses. The defenses keep us separate in fear, keep us in that repeating cycle of death. And here's life eternal, waiting to flow in and show us the truth about all of us. Waiting patiently. Okay, instead of trying to go back to normal, sometimes when we experience a disturbing thought, we try to reset to what we think of as normal. Maybe you could think of that as suppression. I'm just going to put that thought down. It's a disturbing thought, and operate as normal. I'm going to impose my normal. But if you instead allow that thought to go right up to the surface, fully recognize it, have it sit at your table for dinner, recognize it. What does that thought say? It's a sentence in your story, in your unhappy story about something. Just pluck one, instead of telling your unhappy story about something, take one sentence out of it and set it on the sidewalk and reorient toward what is here for all of us. If you feel a great need to tell your unhappy story, then write it down. But all you need to do is pluck any sentence out of that story, excuse me, in order to reorient. And that's all you need to do. Can you see how the story itself has no weight, no significance? Now, if we entwine what we think is our true self in that story, then when I tell you that story of unhappiness has no weight and no significance, you're going to hurt. But where you're hurting is exactly where you've entwined your identity, which is really joined with the true identity of everyone and everything, in this separate story of unhappiness. Whatever suffers is not part of me. So if you can find the thoughts where you're attached, but I am suffering, and be brave enough to question it, set it down for just a moment, and then look toward, let not my world, oh yeah, that's right, I'm making the world of strife with my fear thoughts that I believe. So I have to find the fear thoughts, bring them up to the surface, question them, set them down, reorient. Let not my world obscure the sight that will be shown to me when I put these thoughts down. And feeling pressure means it's time to find one and set it down. So instead of trying to go back to normal, allow a constricting band to be snipped. And find the specific thought. I have the awareness as I'm saying this, there are so many pathways. And I keep saying specific thought, specific thought. This is not an orthodoxy. This is not an orthodoxy that needs to be imposed on anyone else ever. Because there are so many paths to where we join up in our shared, sane world, loving world. So many paths. And if someone's happily engaged on a path, leave them. See their innocence, right? This is, if you're hearing me, maybe you need to practice this for a little while. And then you have a different practice. Maybe you have no practice, but then you practice this for a little while, and then you go back to no practice. I don't know why you're hearing me right now. I just know I'm talking and allowing the thoughts that are coming through to come through. And they're of benefit to someone, not just to me. They're also of benefit to someone I would call else. But be aware at the same time that we don't need to make an orthodoxy out of anything. As much as I emphasize finding a specific thought, I never, and I've learned this, I'm learning this, I never have to impose that on anyone else. Because there are so many paths that look different that are going to the same place. But we can allow a constricting band to be snipped. And we do it by finding a specific thought. So, constructing an illusion of strife with fear thoughts is the same as constricting the flow. Constructing, constricting, constructing, constricting. So whenever we feel pressure of any kind, and I still do, we're constricting the flow of what's here for us, and that's not a crime, it's just something we learn to come out of. And we're constructing an illusion of strife. So that's why we don't need to blame strife on anyone we call else. And it's not the fault of our separate self either, but we have been fooling ourselves, right? There's no separate self to blame. We're one shared self. But we're very confused when we feel this pressure because we are constructing an illusion of strife. And when you realize you're doing that, not that you've done anything wrong, you've just been in a state of confusion. Remember, the hallucination isn't real, and it's very important not to blame anybody. And the only reason we blame others is because we're actively blaming ourselves, but that's so painful that we need to distract away from it by finding ways to blame others. It's extremely painful. And we think blaming others gives us relief, but sooner or later we find out, oh no, I was only holding on to the pain. I was trying to shift it, but you can't shift it. If there's only one self, you're blaming yourself, no matter where you're looking. So constricting. And constricting is optional. And what flows through shows us. So let not my world, the world I've constructed with fear thoughts, obscure the sight of Christ. That's what flows through to show us. There's no construction. I don't have to build anything. It flows through and it shows us and it reflects back to us. It transforms and it shows us an illusion that helps us keep our head on straight. It doesn't contradict what we truly are together. It reinforces what we truly are together. And we see. So this is what we can allow through by putting very specific thoughts on the sidewalk for a moment. And I think that's it for today. Thank you.